I don't know about you, but I'm still buzzing off the back of Arsenal's 1-0 win at Old Trafford. And to be fair, there were lots of amazing performances in that game. We saw the likes of Mohamed Elneny and Thomas Partey and Gabriel. We saw the likes of Kieran Tierney absolutely smash it. We saw Aubameyang turn up when it absolutely needed it in the penalty situation. We've seen an amazing performance from the guys, but there were two people in particular that deserve a lot of love for how they performed in tandem and as a midfield pair. And we're going to go in and talk about them in more detail. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this tactical breakdown of Mohamed Elneny and Thomas Partey. Now, what I love about talking about these two players is just the fact that they're completely new to us, really. I mean, I know Mohamed Elneny has been at the club for a long time. I'm aware of that. I understand that. But he was away last season at Besiktas, and being away from the club at the age of 27 at the time is kind of, especially for a loan, is kind of that this is coming towards the end kind of vibe. This is a loan which will eventually become either a permanent deal or there'll be another loan next season, or we'll wait until your contract expires. And that's what's one of the amazing things about how Elneny has come back to the club. Unwanted by Emery. Emery clearly didn't rate him within the club. And since he's returned, he's been looked upon in training by Mikel Arteta. And if you've ever needed evidence that Mikel Arteta looks at players on face value about what they're offering in training and what they're offering on the pitch, Mohamed Elneny is the best example of that. He's been drafted back into the team and put into the biggest game of Arsenal's season. Yes, we played at Anfield. Yes, we played at Manchester City. But playing at Old Trafford against a Manchester United team that are in competition with us to achieve top four, which, let's face it, Anfield and the Etihad of Manchester City and Liverpool, they're going for the title. But we're not in that realm yet. We're not going for the title, even though this is a crazy season, seemingly. Arsenal's target this season has got to be top four. And he's thrown him in against a team in which I felt personally in the preview show that this is one of the biggest opportunities that we've had of breaking that horrific streak of losing or drawing so many big six away games. And Elneny was thrown into that. Let's have a look at the two heat maps, as you can see on your screen now. On the left-hand side, we've got Thomas Partey's, and on the right-hand side, we've got Mohamed Elneny's. Now, what you initially notice is that, yes, we see a slight skew in terms of kind of which side of the field they favoured. On Partey, on the left, you can see, ironically, I probably should have put these the other way around. But Partey on the left, you can see how he's favouring more that right-hand side. And Elneny, that you can see on the right-hand side, is favouring his left-hand side of the pitch. Now, what is interesting, though, is you can see how widely spread, and that's what I want you to focus on, how spread apart the heat maps are. That's really, really important to think about. 1 second. It's going to be a long video, so I'm going to be taking a few sips of water throughout this. But if you look at what's available to Mikel Arteta throughout that, is that you've got the opportunity for both players to cover each other's positions. Elneny dropping in when Partey goes forward. Partey dropping in when the Egyptian goes forward. They were both everywhere on the pitch, as Daniel Robert in the chat box perfectly takes the words out of my mouth. They were everywhere, and they did the job of each other, and they were synergetic between each other, and they had that knowledge of where the other player was going to be. And it needs to be that way. If you're going to play in a pivot, you need to have that same mindset as each other all the way through the game. Now, I want to focus on each of them individually first, and I want to focus on what each one provided, and then we'll look at the graphics, and then we'll look at their statistics. So if we start off by looking at Thomas Partey and kind of how they influenced the game most, what you can see in this image here is that the ball is being played across the field by Wan-Bissaka. Now, our midfield is being made up mainly of Saka, Elneny, and Partey. Now, what was really interesting about Saka's role in the game is that because when the lineup came out, when you see Saka in a lineup with both Willian, Aubameyang, and Lacazette, you're thinking that maybe Saka's playing either a free role, maybe Willian's going to be playing at a 10, or maybe Saka's going to be playing left wing back. It's not really easy to try and pick apart where Saka would play. What it turned out to be was that we play with a back four of Bellerin and Gabriel and Holding and Tierney. But then Saka kind of, on the defensive side of things, turned it into a back five when he joined them. But on an offensive side of things, Saka was the most fluid. Saka moved forward or backwards depending on what possession-based system we were in, whether it was United in possession or whether it was ourselves. And at times, you even had sort of Bellerin pushing forward to make it a back three with Gabriel, Holding and Tierney staying back. And then you had the four made up of Saka, Partey, Elneny and Bellerin. But in this example here, Partey identifies the danger immediately. He identifies the pass going across the box. He identifies also that he can make it. His reading of the game is excellent. And he jumps into this tackle, makes it, and not only makes it, but he actually recovers and recycles possession for the team. And that is something that we really need to take place. It's not only just sort of intercepting passes, getting little nicks here and there, but also winning possession back. And that's exactly what Partey provided. Now, if you are a short to medium term listener of the show, over the summer, we did a fair few shows talking about Thomas Partey. We looked at what he would provide. We got interviews with experts, Graham Hunter, Kieran Quayle, John Driscoll, etc. And we got all of the guys' thoughts. And one of the key running themes of what they talked about was how Thomas Partey would transition the ball from the defensive third of the pitch into the midfield and pass the ball into the final third. And in this example here, we saw exactly what we had been preaching on the show for weeks. In this example here, you can see Fred passing the ball into sort of in and around our box, a dangerous area. Now, Partey uses his initial skill of reading the play excellently and grabbing the ball. And when he does grab that ball away from Fred, what he does next is just the perfect example of every single thing I've been telling you about this guy. He gets the ball up the pitch towards the halfway line and then plays it intelligently onto the next person to carry the ball forwards. He is so key in what we need to do and how we change things. And specifically talking about like in the way that we attack and sort of approach these big six opposition games away from home. That's the biggest problem that we've had for such a long time, is not being able to get out from the back without making mistakes. And Partey changes that so dangerously for us. And I'm really enjoying watching what I put on the screen so many times. If you remember the amount of examples I threw up on the screen of Thomas Partey for Atletico Madrid taking the ball and driving it up the other end of the pitch, and now he's doing it for Arsenal. That is ultimately what is really great to see from this Thomas Partey in this Arsenal team. It's absolutely fantastic. Now let's move on to Mohamed Elneny and talk about the game that he had a little bit more. Now, whilst Partey is more expressive, more expansive, you can see Partey in the image on the left-hand side. This is an example where we've maintained pressure on Man United. Man United are trying to clear the ball. And Elneny, you probably remember this because it kind of stood out for me, and that's why I looked for it in the analysis. But the ball is headed out, and Mohamed Elneny reads the flight of the ball and then dives in to not only get his foot on the ball, but again play the ball out to Kieran Tierney to continue the pressure. It's the fact that we not only did we allow we didn't allow Man United to escape, but what we did do really well is we maintained the pressure. We kind of enclosed their box at times and stopped them from escaping and stopped them from counter-attacking us. And Mohamed Elneny was key to that, really key during the game. And not only that, but the best example to show you of Mohamed Elneny and what he did best during the game was his engine. Now, this image and the following two images are taken from beyond the 90th minute. And you know exactly, you've seen this on Twitter, you've seen this in social media posts. What he does here in this example is exactly what we need to see from our midfielders in the final minutes of a game. Not panic, not troublesome thoughts entering our minds and ultimately diving in, making mistakes and doing silly things, but being composed, trusting each other, and being able to bring yourselves out from the back when you need to. And if you've got the trust in your defence, you know that you can still press. You know that you don't have to sit back. Because if you didn't trust your backline, you would be sticking in. Elneny would not be doing what he does in this scenario if he didn't have the trust of his centre-backs and the other midfielders around him to maintain composure, maintain position and discipline. And yet he does trust them. And that's why he's able to push out. And not only push out, but he chases all the way around the pitch, forcing Luke Shaw into a really unadvantageous position, to the point where Luke Shaw has to turn around and play the ball backwards. And this is with seconds left on the clock, at the time when you think that United should be pushing that ball into the box, but they couldn't, because Elneny harried and hassled them so often throughout the 90 minutes, and he was absolutely excellent. And you just have to think about what we've now got as an option. Now, I'm not saying that I'm trying to think about whether I think that Elneny and Partey should be the partnership in every single Arsenal game. Because when you think about it, there are going to be times when we come up against sides that did exactly what Leicester City did against us, where they play with the low block, where they play with 11 men behind the ball, and you've got absolutely no chance of breaking them down. I don't think Elneny and Partey are the right partnership for that. I think you may need to throw a Ceballos in. You may need to put a Pepe in. You may need to put someone else into the midfield, into the wide areas that are going to help you break that down until January. January is really important for Arsenal because in January, Arsenal need to go out and they need to sign a midfielder that can break down low blocks, can find those key passes, can find the incisive passing lanes to get through that block. And we also need to find a striker that can score. And hopefully it doesn't have to come from outside. And hopefully we can get Lacazette back onto clinical form or get Aubameyang playing through the middle. But they're the two key areas right now where you look at defensively, Arsenal looks solid. But it's chance creation and it's ultimately that finishing, clinical, composed element that we're kind of missing from the team at the moment. Now, what I want to show you is some of the statistics of Partey's game. Now, I'm hoping I get this one right. Let me just check that I'm onto the right thing before I throw up something that is not helpful in any way. Okay, so here we go. This is what I wanted to show you. So you can see here Partey's statistics. So they're a little bit small, so apologies for that. If I just go into his defensive statistics here, this is for this season. I'm going to zoom in so you can see slightly better. But you can see there, it shows you the average at the top. So this is from 2021. So part of the time he was playing at Atletico Madrid, part of the time he was playing for Ghana, and part of the time he's been playing for us. Now, against Manchester United, he's starting to get more minutes on the pitch. He's integrating into Arsenal's side. Typically, Partey, on average, makes 7.31 defensive duels in a game and wins 71% of those. For this one, and against Man United, he made 9 defensive duels and he won 78% of them. Above average to what he's done so far. Sliding tackles, 0.75, usually in each game. 2 out of 2 sliding tackles were made. Interceptions was about spot on. 4 interceptions in the game, which is excellent. And against Rapid Vienna, he managed 7. So that's quite impressive too. If we go into the losses and clearances, losses, it was about average. Actually, it was just slightly under average at 8. But it's actually the recoveries that's most impressive. Recoveries, the amount of times he got the ball back for the team, 13 times in the game did Thomas Partey manage to get the ball back for us in recoveries. And he averages just under 10. So again, above average. Above average for clearances, under average for fouls, which was good, under average for yellow cards, which is also great. To go through that type of game and not pick up a yellow card is really, really impressive. Now, let's go on to Elneny, because I think that sometimes, and actually I just saw in the chat as I was changing over, Akene says, Tom, no, I'm still worried that Elneny's passes are still going unnoticed. Now, I want you to show you something to do with Elneny. If I just get it up on the screen for you. Mohamed Elneny, here we go. Statistics. Now, we want to go to 2021, and we want to make sure we're in the right competitions. Yes, we are. So, against Manchester United, defensively, let's just zoom out so I can get this defensively. Here we go, and zoom back in again. On average, 3.55 defensive duels, he did 3 and he won 2 of them. So a higher amount of defensive duels were being won than he usually performs on average. Now, one of the key parts of his game was really good. 4.92 interceptions on average. He made 9 interceptions during the game. Crazy. Crazy amount of interceptions. Losses to recoveries, 6 losses and 6 recoveries, and he actually managed to make 3 recoveries in the opposition half, and that's something that's really key to think about. Now, actually, it's his passing stats that I really want to highlight, because a lot of people, including myself, have accused Mohamed Elneny of being a little bit too passive. Now, in the United game, he managed 93% passing accuracy, which you're like, yeah, okay, fair enough. He made 93% passing accuracy, but this is Elneny. Elneny only passes sideways. He only passes backwards. Well, actually, of all of his 60 passes, a third of those passes were forward thinking. Now that means it's nothing to do with sideways or through balls into the wide areas. I'm talking forward passes. And so those forward passes, of those 20, 85% of them were accurate. And even more impressively, 1/6 of his passes were made into the final third, 11 passes were made into the final third, and 11 passes were completed. 100% pass completion rate into the final third of the opposition's half. That is an unbelievably good statistic to be able to talk about with Mohamed Elneny. It's great. The fact that he's come on leaps and bounds for us is amazing. And the fact that they've kind of got this relationship built up already is also really understood. Before we end up the show, I want to give you an opportunity to ask me some tactical questions based around either the game or where you think we should go forward. So if you'd like to throw some of those into the live chat, this is what I like about doing the Tactical Breakdown show live, is that I can answer some of your tactical questions, which is great. Mike Marcham says, Tom, who do you think we should sign to be that attacking midfield threat? Well, tactically speaking, we obviously need to find someone in January that's going to break down that low block. Someone that can find passes into the final third. Now, there's two options that, of course, come to mind. The first one is Houssem Aouar. The second one is Dominic Szoboszlai. Now, with both of those players, Aouar is more along the development line than what Szoboszlai is. And for that reason, he will cost a hell of a lot more money. Will Arsenal have the 50 to 60 million euros that Lyon want in January? I don't know. My initial thoughts is unlikely, honestly speaking. And the thing with Dominic Szoboszlai is that actually he plays a lot on the left, although he can play more central. And I think that Arsenal kind of look at him as a possibility of being someone that can play and would play more centrally. Is he someone that finds the incisive passes quite like Aouar? Not as much. He's someone that's more proactive. He runs with the ball. He dribbles with it. He's got strength. He's got power. He's got speed. He's explosive. And those attributes aren't as much in Aouar's game. They're still there, and they're not to a low amount whatsoever. I'm not completely not criticising the amount that Aouar can be explosive, but Szoboszlai has that more integrated into his game on a more consistent basis. You've also got to think about that Aouar, according to Jeremy Smith, our French football expert, talks about him more as a number 8. Now, we want a number 10. Do we think we can trust Aouar to transition to a number 10? Well, he's played there for the national team, so maybe. I think it's going to be really interesting to see where we kind of go with those January things. Christopher Fung says, why wouldn't you give yesterday's 11 a chance to break down a low block? I think they could do it and could be our best 11 going forwards. I don't think Chris is about not giving him a chance. I think there's always the option to give it a go. I just have my concerns. Like any good disciple, they have their doubts, and I have my doubts as to whether Elneny and Partey could perform the midfield role necessary to be able to break down a low block. They were really effective against United because they could break down attacks, and against a low block, we're not going to see that happen too often. We're not going to see Partey run into the opposition half with the ball too often. And that's why I struggle. I feel like Dani Ceballos and Partey may be a better combination in the games against teams with low blocks. But there's no reason to say that we couldn't try that. No reason to say that at all. Eskimo Max says, this has to be the most underrated Arsenal YouTube channel out there. Along with Charles Watts, this educated chat is so much better. Well, let's not harm our TV too much. But there's some nice guys over there. Come on, we like Judges. We like Judges and Graham. So, they have their style, we have mine. But I appreciate the comment, mate. Really appreciate it. Ariane says, Tom, could you do a video about buying a more creative midfielder using data? I mean, you do have Wisecout. I do. They cost me a hell of a lot of money. But maybe, Ariane, maybe that's something that we can look towards doing. Doug says, Lyon is going to get a hurting financially in January. Price might go down, but they will hold out until the summer for the big boy admirers. I 100% agree with you. Stephen Oliver says, and this is actually a point I wanted to touch upon, so thank you, Stephen. Should Xhaka be worried for his place considering yesterday's midfield performance? And the answer has to be yes. Granit Xhaka has to be concerned about his place in the team because Mohamed Elneny is more mobile than Xhaka. Mohamed Elneny has shown and proved me wrong that he can be a forward-thinking passer. And he can provide those passes that we need. And I think actually he complements Thomas Partey more than what Granit Xhaka I've seen him do. So I can hold my hands up and say that, look, I'm starting to think about Granit Xhaka being secondary to Mohamed Elneny, which if you'd have asked me that a month ago, I would have said you're crazy. But what's important about hosting a show and what's important about having an open forum is to know when you say, yeah, I was wrong, guys. I hold my hands up. Granit Xhaka, whilst I still have a lot of praise for the guy, I think maybe we need to look towards a more mobile midfielder to work next to Partey. I mean, you look at Atletico Madrid, you put Saul next to Partey, and it's an excellent combination. So, and you know what's really exciting and something that might go under the radar is that if Torreira has a really good year, a really, really good year at Atletico Madrid, there's no option to buy. There's no way they can just pinch him like we pinched Thomas Partey. there's something interesting about the possibility to play Torreira and Partey together in the future. And I don't think Torreira rules out a future at Arsenal either. So that's really, really interesting. Matthew says, with the Gooners podcast, tapping up one of your co-hosts, what retribution should follow? If you didn't know, our good boy Owen... Now, he's not been tapped up. We say on this channel that if you come on, and a lot of the expert members who have done, a lot of people that have come on the podcast in the past, you can go wherever you like. I don't mind. You can go to people that I don't like. You can go to people that I like. I don't mind. You are free to come and go as you please. And I hope that in a way we've become the Red Bull Salzburg of developing young podcasting talent. Because a lot of people that have come on the show have gone on to make their own shows, which is great. And to be honest, I have absolutely no problem with anyone going anywhere at all. I don't own anyone here. This channel is an open forum, as I've always said. So if Owen wants to go and do his stuff over at the Gooners Pod, I wish him the best of luck. And I'm sure he'll always come back to come on the Gooner Talk as well. So don't you worry about anyone pinching anyone's hosts and guests and stuff. It's great. In fact, I love going on other people's shows. And weirdly, I feel like I don't go on enough. So if you do, I mean, I've got a life, but yeah, I feel like I've opened myself up now. But yeah, no, I think that's the perfect way to put it. Anyone who comes on the show is welcome to go anywhere. And I hope that when people come on the show, they enjoy podcasting. Some people, I've got a friend of mine coming on in a week's time that has never done it before. So that should be fun as well. So interesting stuff. Eskimo Max says, do you think Jobaslai I will not excuse your spelling. Or our signing would spell the end for Lacazette or Xhaka. Can't think where they would fit into the system. Elneny made a great case. Ceballos unneeded. Interesting. I think you meant, does it spell the end for Ceballos or Xhaka? It's interesting, isn't it? Does it spell the end? I mean, if you bought in, say, Jobaslai Aouar, I can't see the reasoning behind going out and then buying Ceballos. I'm not sure that would make too much sense. Especially when you've got other players coming through, unless you sell them and you keep Ceballos. So it's interesting. I don't know if it spells the end for them, because rotation's always going to be key, but it could mean an impact on the amount of minutes that they have, for sure. Manoj says, Tom, how old were you when we won at Old Trafford? I was like 11. I was 11 too, Manoj. I was 11 the last time, in 2006, 11 years old. Absolutely crazy. Tom's infatuation with the RB model continues. Of course it's an infatuation, Chris. Of course, it's the best model out there. It's the best model. People moan about the Red Bull model because it's this big conglomeration, and I understand that. They develop amazing talents, and they go on to do amazing things. Whilst you can have questions about the company, I understand that. But I look at the footballing side of things, and I see the amazing work that happens with the young players that go on to produce the likes of Sadio Mane, Naby Keita, Dayo Upamecano, Conrad Lima, Kevin Campbell, Marcel Sabitzer. Like, all these guys, like, there's so many examples where they've gone on to do a great thing. So I will have an obsession with it all day long, mate. All day long. I'm not old. What? 25 or 26 in... how many days? 19 days, and I'm 26. Yes, I get to have my birthday in lockdown. Fantastic. Maybe we'll have to come and do a show on my birthday. We might be the same age. Yeah, or if you're 25, Rodney, then we are. Balaji says, do you think we still need to improve our finishing? I mean, I don't think, Balaji, I know we do. These crucial chances that we are missing out might bite us in future Premier League games. I agree. I think we do need to improve our finishing. I think that's a very, very simple thing to think about, for sure. Daniel Roberts says, our spine is so good now. Partey, Elneny and Gabriel. I mean, it's amazing. Amazing what two... Didn't we always talk about how Arsenal were like 2 or 3 signings away from really pushing forwards and progressing? Well, I think we've got the 2 in Gabriel and Partey. I think we need one more, which is Aouar, Szoboszlai, possible type signing. And maybe, obviously, another centre-back. We'll have to see how William Saliba develops, of course. And maybe a striker. I'm starting to add more. But when you think about it, we've got Partey and Gabriel. When we talked about kind of the summer, who should we go for, Partey or Gabriel? The spine of the team is so important. So Partey and Gabriel, unbelievable. Tetza says, do you think we'll spend money in January? If I was to put my money on it, I would say yes. I think we will spend in January. I think we'll try and do stuff that we weren't able to do in the summer. And I also think we'll try and move some players like Socrates, like Kolasinac, possibly other players on in the summer. So it's going to be, in January. So interesting. Really, really interesting. That, I think, is going to be that. So thank you ever so much for tuning in. If you could drop a like on the video, I'd really appreciate it. If you've tuned in late and you missed the main breakdown of the tactical stuff with Partey and Elneny, make sure you scroll back and have a listen and have a look at how those two had such a key impact on yesterday's game. This is not your only show of the day. We are having a podcast this evening at 8:30. I'll be joined by French and John to talk about yesterday's game. Very exciting stuff. So more chance for you guys to jump around in the chat box. Well, I mean, hypothetically jump around. I don't think you can really do that physically in the chat. But if you could, members, if you could throw some party times into the chat box, show the love for Partey. We might need to get an Elneny emoji made at this stage, as well as a Jobosly one. So we're going to have to get there at some point. But thank you ever so much for tuning in, people. Thank you to the members, as always, for helping support the channel, the TGT ambassadors and the expert members, and of course the Plus and TGT members also. Thank you ever so much, guys, for being you absolute legends, part of the TGT gang. As always, I will see you again very, 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 very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.